Yeah.
No, yeah,
Yes.
great.
People will probably walk in.
That's all right, yeah, no, they're welcome to. It's one small video for a man, and it's one hot cup of tea. Sam, thank you for inviting me down tonight to
Thank you very much for coming.
every Thursday Harry's evening.
For being such a long-standing supporter of the evening.
I love it. This is my good friend Sam. Jason Mitchell is saying, yo. Jason, can you give us a sound check? Are you hearing us loud and clear? Is the picture clear? Just like to clear that up before we can edit this bit out later on. Yeah, Jason, just tell me, are you hearing us loud and clear? Camille Kellner is saying Sam Thursdays. Thank you. Yeah, it's all good. Cool. All right. So we have good sound. We have good visuals, and every week this great friend of mine puts together a monologue lecture, and we all sit in silence and listen to it. What was tonight about?
So tonight was in actually celebration of the Apollo 11 moon landing. Which was it happened on 20th of July, I believe, 1969. Today's the 25th of July, 2019. 50 years and 4 days. This happens every Thursday, so it's the 50th anniversary, as close as we can get.
50 years since they faked the moon landing.
50 years since they faked it. So 50 years since the moon landing, which I believe happened, by the way. And it was a discussion about how we got to the point, how amazing it was, what a feat it was for humanity, for humanity, not just America or those, and also how we got to this point. But more importantly, from my point of view, what it means for humanity here on in.
Why was it for humanity if it was America and the American flag was put down on the moon and it didn't wave in the wind? Or it did. Well, do you know what? I'm a conspiracy nut, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to pretend I think it all really happened.
Yes.
So it was America that did it. It's the American flag still flapping in the non-atmosphere on the moon. So in what way was it for the world? And Camille Kilner is saying now we need to take over the galaxy, spread the human seed everywhere.
I'm with you. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. That's where I was going with it, absolutely. But yes, to me, it's just one small step going to the moon. The world needs to unite in order for the next step, which is going to Mars, going beyond, intergalactic civilizations, the rest of it. This is just the first step. But anyway, enough of that. Why? Your question is, why is it that that we are celebrating it in the world when actually it's an American that did it?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it depends what your view. If you have a very kind of limited view of, nationalistic view of the world, then you might say, well, this is America that did it. And I'm sure there are many Americans who think, well, we did it. It's nothing to do with anyone else. But when Yuri Gagarin went into space, we take that as, well, humankind, Homo sapiens sapiens went into space. Our friends across the pond, well, Americans are thinking our friends across the pond in Russia did that. And as I presented tonight, it's a culmination of different things throughout world history that leads us to this point. How did the Americans get there? Well, firstly, I think something like, I don't know what department it is or whether it's the whole of NASA, but something like 30 or 40% of scientists in NASA are Iranian. I think my mum was saying that. But certainly, even if that stat is false, I mean, NASA is not just, what does American mean? America is a multicultural nation anyway.
Yeah.
So black, white, Chinese, Iranian, whatever, makes up NASA. And actually, so where did they get that from? So they got it from scientific thinking, scientific methodology. That came from the likes of, Newton, Galileo, Einstein, Heisenberg, whatever, all of that thinking. And where did they get that from? Well, from the Industrial Revolution, from the Renaissance. Where did we get the Renaissance from? Well, we got the Renaissance through Islam. The first universities in the world were from Islam. Where did Islam, that breadth of, that depth of knowledge in the Middle East? Well, as I proudly said tonight, the Persian Empire invented roads, taxation, the postal service, abolished slavery, all of these things. Civilization doesn't just happen in a bubble. NASA didn't just go from, inventing the square wheel to getting to the moon. This was a collaboration, maybe not a a direct, willing collaboration, but a collaboration that just happened over time, over the centuries, between East and West and North and South. All different continents have come together. So this is really why, to me, this is a celebration for humanity, even though the flag on the moon is, well, it might be all bleached white now, I genuinely don't know, but the flag on the moon is an American one. It's these guys, they're Americans across the pond, they're my brothers, they are Homo sapiens sapiens, they did it. That's a culmination of them, of what my ancestors did, what your ancestors did. It's a world event.
What about the first person in space?
Was
Yuri Gagarin.
Well, that was Yuri Gagarin, the Russian.
We mentioned was a Russian.
Yes.
But a more inclusive and multicultural country was the Soviet Union, and it was the Soviet Union that went to space first, not just Russia.
Right.
And that might be an important factor to remember. Maybe in Eastern or Soviet countries they remember him more than we remember Neil Armstrong. But why are you not proud of that? Is it because you've been brought up in the West and you've had the propaganda?
Good question, Jules. I think partly, obviously, being born and brought up in England, and I read the story of Yuri Gagarin as a child. At the same time as I read, there's a series of books. So I personally read them both. But going to the moon is obviously the big one. That's the best thing we have done thus far.
Because that's what the Americans did.
Well, because
it was the space race. All right, you got. Oh no, it's to the moon. You got to space. Oh no,
no, you're
keep
right.
going.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think partly it's because we're on this side.
Best of three.
We're in NATO, aren't we? We're on the American side. So what they did is the best one. And I'm sure in Russia, people are having discussions now going, oh, why do we consider Yuri Gagarin the best? Of course, going to space is probably a bigger barrier than just landing on the moon. But then you say we're going to the moon, you've got to pass through space to get to the moon. So you're right. Yeah.
To not be speciesist, I'm quite proud of the dog that.
Oh yes,
the
what's
first
the dog called?
First dog. Well, I don't know, but it's the same one that found the World Cup.
Yes.
The dog went to space and didn't come back. That's always a sad story to tell the children.
Why, did he like it so much up there?
I'm sorry to say, Sam, he's in doggy heaven. Daniel Braunstein is saying top chat, and he's put it in capital letters.
Good man.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
He's someone we know. Okay, the dog went to space. The humans went to space. We haven't been back to the moon since when, and why not?
So I was educated tonight, as I often am on these evenings. I embarrassingly thought Buzz Aldrin was the last man on the moon, but I was informed tonight that actually there were other missions beyond that, where I think 10 others, I believe, went to the moon over I don't know how many years. And why have we not been back? I'll be honest with you, Jules, I have absolutely no idea. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories whether we even went, and we went and aliens told us not to come back or whatever. I don't believe them, but I genuinely don't know. Or maybe it's just, well, you know what, it's just a big barren rock. What's the point? We've been there a few times, it costs trillions of dollars each time. Yeah. Is there really any point? No.
I am fascinated by the moon as an object, as a satellite, and a lot of the words we have come from words that mean the moon, like lunatic, meaning a crazy person. Loon is
absolutely
French for water. It might be French or Latin. Month, meaning the one cycle of the moon.
I believe so.
Mono being the word for one. Okay. Mono is one. Solo is one. Okay. Meaning the sun. So the sun and the moon are these two solitary or mono objects in the sky, one or the other. People used to think they were the same thing.
Well, I suppose it makes sense for language to borrow so much, to use so much from the sun and the moon. I mean, for hundreds of thousands of years, those were the big things in the sky. This big yellow thing, this big white thing. There were the stars, of course, but these were much more impressive than the other.
And so it is a bit of a coincidence that they are hundreds of miles apart. I mean, it would
93 million miles.
How long
I
would it
believe.
take to drive there in a Ferrari?
Yeah, 100,
Going at
100 days.
80?
It would take days to get out there. No, so the sun,
without stopping.
I believe, and maybe one of our listeners can correct us, I believe off the top of my head, the sun is, I think, 93 million miles away, I think. And I believe, I'm sure everyone knows this, that light takes 8 to 10 minutes to reach us from the surface of the sun.
From the sun. So if the sun disappeared, we wouldn't know about it for 8 minutes.
We wouldn't know about it for that long. Yeah, absolutely.
Daniel Braunstein has mentioned also the word moony, as in he moonied the passers-by through the bus window.
Yes, very good. I don't know why. Does the bottom look like a moon? I suppose it does.
Some people it does. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you get the right shape.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Mr. Bronstein.
Thank you, Danny.
For your input.
Keep the wisdom coming.
Yeah, any more bum-related comments, much appreciated. It's interesting that the moon has played such an important part in language and culture and poetry, because it's a big white thing that you see in the sky at night and in the day.
You'll probably know this, but women's menstrual cycle, women used to have their period all at the same time during the full.
I didn't know that. I do know that women in modern times, where the moon isn't something that we see all the time, when they're living in the same house, their menstrual cycles might coincide. Whether the menstrual cycles coincide with the moon, I don't know, but I genuinely don't know.
I believe so. I read that somewhere. And why? I mean, why would it be? Why would it be a month? Month is the moon.
Good thinking. Yes.
That's my.
That makes sense. Maybe we've evolved. Do other animals have monthly cycle, 28-day cycles? I honestly don't know. I'm embarrassed as a scientist not to know that. I shall look it up.
Oxford graduate.
I shall definitely look it up. So, do I ask you questions on this?
Oh, anything goes. It's
anything goes.
Freedom of speech.
So,
anything.
So, do you believe that? I know we don't need to go here. It's your show.
Whatever the mainstream opinion is, I have the opposite opinion.
Okay, right. Do you think? What do you think of the conspiracy theories that suggest? Let's keep it simple. That we.
Does the moon really
does it really exist? That we didn't go to the moon.
Okay.
That it was faked. I've seen some pretty compelling kind of arguments that we didn't. What do you think of those?
Okay, so I did say I would pretend I think the moon is real, but
that's right. We don't have to go there. We don't have to go there.
No. Well, I think we should. I think that the footage of the moon landing and the people on the moon looks very fake.
Okay.
So, but you can still go to the moon and fake the footage.
Right.
I'm not saying that the moon landing didn't happen, but I think that footage looks very fake. In 1/3 gravity, you would expect to see
1/6.
1/6. There you go. You would expect to see people jumping 6 times higher than they normally can. Even with the big heavy suit on, I would have expected to see something more acrobatic than just a video which, if played at double speed, looks exactly like a bunch of men running around in the sand in the desert. So I'm not sold on the footage. Did we go to the moon? Probably we did. I don't think you'd have that many people all working on it, and to have such a mass conspiracy of so many minds and how many scientists and employees of NASA were working on it, you'd have to have too many people to be on it. Probably they did go to the moon, but perhaps they had backup footage or something in place to really prove to the Russians that we got there first, because that's what it was about, beating the Russians.
Yes.
And we said tonight that civilization often advances when you've got a competitor.
Yes.
You know, Usain Bolt would never have ran so fast if he didn't have Mustafa Powell or whoever else behind him pushing him to the line. So the Americans needed the competition. It's all very well to say, oh, let's all be hippies and work together and hold hands.
Exactly.
You won't have the drive to achieve unless you're trying to beat someone else, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
And I'd rather people try and beat each other at flying into space than fighting over oil or land or whatever. So it's a good thing to compete at. We said tonight, oh, what a waste of money. But there are worse wastes of money than trying to fly
I
to
didn't
the moon.
agree with that point of view, by the way, but yeah, it was mentioned tonight.
Some of
yes.
them. And it's, I can see why people say that, and that it comes from a good-hearted place, but you have to understand how motivation works, how people work. It's all very well saying, oh, why did you bother going to the moon?
Yeah.
All right, well, you go somewhere then.
Yes.
What have you done? He's thrown a shoe over a house. Like, a lot of the comments probably get a few on this video is people telling you, oh, I wouldn't have made the video like that. Okay, make a channel then. You've got a YouTube account with 3 subscribers and no videos. You do it then.
Yes. So you think we went, but that video. But why would that? So you think we went later?
I don't know. I mean, the Americans. I think the NASA went to the moon. I mean, I googled it tonight as we were talking, just to see how many failed missions there were. And you spoke beautifully about one of the final missions that did. Which one in 87?
Well, it was the Challenger in 1986.
Yeah,
I don't know if they were actually. I honestly don't know where they were going. Were they just going to space, or were they going to the moon? I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, that blew up for 73 seconds, I think, after takeoff.
Right.
So you think? So I about you, but I don't want to put you on the spot.
That's all right.
So what? We would have gone to the moon. So what? So maybe there were aliens on the moon, and so I mean that's what some UFO believers, of which I am one, but I don't.
We'll get on to that in a minute.
I don't believe this conspiracy, but that's what some say, is that they went and there were so many UFO aliens on the moon. They said, right, go away. So that's why we didn't go back, and that's why we had to make up some other footage, because the place was teeming. I don't buy that.
I don't know. I don't.
Is that why you?
No, I don't know.
Right,
I don't think so.
No.
I think on the moon there's a huge supply of gold.
Right.
That's the answer for anything.
Yes.
Gold is the answer. Jordan M is saying big up Lessons for Life. Thank you, Jordan M. Hope you're well. Jordan M, I have to ask you, what do you think about the moon landings? Did it really happen, or is it another one of those conspiracy theories? Jordan M's a regular down at Speaker's Corner.
Okay.
And very clever chap. I always, when it comes to these things like the flat Earth and whatnot, I wonder how convinced are these people? Because we live in times where everyone is really, really convinced of whatever they think.
Yeah.
Or so they claim. But you can never put your money where your mouth is. If someone put a gun to my head and said, right, did we A or B go to the moon?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to say.
Yeah.
My sense is that we did.
Yes.
I just have doubts about the footage, and there might be reasons for that. If anyone can explain, Jordan M is saying, I believe it happened. There are conspiracy theories on everything.
I agree.
Exactly. And just to make it, I want to believe it happened. I wish the footage convinced me. Then there wouldn't be this obstacle. There wouldn't be this doubt, and I wouldn't have to be sort of having. What do you call it? Theoretical or hypothetical situation of, okay, well, if it did happen, then X, Y, and Z. It is much simpler to just have the narrative and say, yeah, okay.
The only thing I genuinely find strange, I mean, I looked into it. In fact, unlike you, I wanted to believe it didn't happen.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people love a good conspiracy, I was and am one of those people. And I sort of saw some fantastic, compelling arguments online, various websites, looking at the crosshairs and looking at the flag and the shadows and how the sky was all black and all of these things. And I thought, I'm convinced. But as a scientist, as you know, you must never look at just one side of the argument. So I looked at the debunking side, and I was rather disappointed to actually believe the debunking side. Every single point, including the ones you've mentioned, have been answered satisfactorily as far as I'm concerned. Now, I don't remember them, but maybe we could research them after. The only one that I cannot find an answer to, and I just find really odd, and I do believe we went, and I do believe that's real footage, is that apparently, and maybe one of the listeners can correct me if I'm wrong, apparently the actual footage of us landing on the moon, of the most important event in the history of Homo sapiens sapiens,
Had to be reshot in the Nevada desert.
No, that actual footage has been lost. They have actually lost the original footage of us going to the moon. And the footage that we have is a footage that has been mastered where? I believe it's one of the Hollywood studios. So that, I believe, and maybe someone can correct us, Jordan M. or whoever, who's on Google and can check it, I believe that is fact, that is not disputed.
Okay.
That isn't, and that to me is bizarre. Why on earth? It's something that you spent trillions or billions of dollars on, I don't know the figures.
It's worse than taping over your wedding video, isn't it?
It's much worse than that. It is infinitely worse than taping over your wedding video. Like, you've done the biggest thing, and surely this should be guarded in some, we just taped over it by mistake. We just recorded, people doing moonies out of buses. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, I do believe we went to the moon, but I just don't.
So how do you quantify that? How do you reconcile that with your scientific brain?
Well, the simple explanation is it was just as NASA said, it was a mistake, and human error happens.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan M is saying 25% of people in Britain believe it was a hoax.
Wow.
So I'm with the majority. Yeah, that's true.
I think I think Jules, you said something really insightful a moment ago, which is quite odd for you, actually.
Thank you.
It must be my presence rubbing off, my aura rubbing off on you. No, and we actually had a Thursday night presentation on this, Harry's Evening, from the plug-in. It was a week or two ago on this very topic of faith and belief.
Yeah.
And it is really interesting that you're right, that people do completely latch on to one belief and they are 100% certain of it. And that's actually non-scientific. If you speak to any scientist worth his salt and you ask him about the validity of something, most of the time, if it's something semi-contentious, they'll say, well, look, the evidence points towards so-and-so. Even climate change, which I believe in and we won't go into, man-made climate change, it's not that it's definitely happening. Every scientist agrees it's happening. I believe it's now 99% of scientists.
Someone told me that today. It's
gone from 97 to 99 apparently. So even then there's that 1% doubt. So that's the way science works. And everyone who's honest with themselves has some doubt about everything. You have to have doubt about everything. I can't even be sure that my name is Sam. Maybe my birth certificate was a hoax.
And isn't this the scientific approach? Is, you've mentioned it to me before, the term, is it something like beyond reasonable doubt or statistically
significant? Every scientific study. So when a scientific study says that this has been proven, so let's say aspirin has been proven to prevent heart attacks, what they mean in actual terms, it's not, it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. It just means that within normally 95% confidence interval. So there's a 95, there's a 1 in 20 chance that results from the study is just because of chance rather than aspirin actually working. So it's 95% probably the case in that study that aspirin is good for heart attacks. Now, I don't know what the stats are actually for aspirin, but it is a very small effect, but it's statistically significant because 95% or 19 out of 20 chance, and normally at 5%, a p-value of I think 0.05. Normally that is considered to be proof. But
and you mentioned tonight about science and religion going hand in hand.
Yeah.
You believe in God.
I do, yes.
And science.
And science, yes.
How do you apply the scientific approach to your belief in God? Are you 99.9% sure that God exists, and therefore it's good enough for you, or are you 100% sure? I'm
probably less than 99%. I'm probably 90% sure God exists. I mean,
that's modest. I'll be for completely honest. Person of faith.
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting. I had a chat with a very close and a very atheistic friend of mine, and I said to him, look, I'm pretty sure that God exists, and sure enough to live my life by the teachings of the messengers of God, Jesus and Muhammad and Baha'u'llah and so on and so forth. But I'm not 100% sure, and I was honest about that. And he said, but I am 100% sure that he doesn't exist.
He wins then.
And he said, therefore, if you're not 100% sure, and I am 100% sure, therefore, by definition, I'm right and you are wrong.
Yeah, people think the surest person wins the argument. I trust people who are not sure. Jordan M. mentioned, I think the issue for me is the hoax claims are so variable. No one is united on one claim, so it seems people were desperate for a conspiracy. Yeah, at least the people saying they went to the moon are all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Yeah.
And Jordan M. saying, I like the orange polo shirt.
Thank you very much.
And PSV Eindhoven, who is from Holland and probably likes the orange as well, says, tell us about Area 51. What do you guys think is happening there? Yeah, we're getting into it now. We're getting into the real issues.
I could speak forever about aliens.
And people are storming UFOs, Area 51 soon.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, are they? I mean, the American military aren't going to let people storm. It's not like a whole load of people are going to break through the fence.
Unless they want it to happen.
Unless they want it to happen.
Unless it's a distraction from something else that's really happening.
Yeah.
Over in Area 52, which you don't even know about. Muhammad Akbar said, ancient Egyptians summoned jinns to create the pyramids. Talking of which.
Yeah, that's a theory.
Yeah. Are jinns aliens? Come on, tell me about the aliens. Unless you want to go and mingle, which I'm very.
No, I love. There's nothing I love talking about more.
Tell me about the ladyboys.
Tell me about the ladyboys. Okay, so
fascinating creatures. I don't find them attractive.
Okay, so I'll be serious. Serious. So
let's get serious.
I am as convinced as I can be, and again, I'm not 99%. Sure. I'm as convinced as I can be.
Okay.
That there are intelligently controlled physical craft. By physical, I mean not kind of just holograms, but actual physical craft. Intelligently controlled, that are beyond the capabilities of mankind as we know it, of militaries.
But someone must know it. Do you mean what's known in the public domain?
No. In the public domain.
Okay. So there are craft that no human understands.
I believe there's more than as Stanton Friedman, one of the UFO late Stanton Friedman, one of the great UFO researchers said, I believe there's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to evidence, that there are craft out there that are beyond. Now, note that I did say that are beyond the knowledge of mainstream science and militaries.
Right.
In my mind, the two options are that either we are being visited by extraterrestrial beings, or there's a possibility, scientifically I can't discount this, that there are organisations within the world, so Homo sapiens sapiens, humans, terrestrial, that are outside of militaries, that don't care about governments, they don't care if America wins or Iran wins or whatever, they're outside, like the banks don't care about certain countries, they just want to make money, and maybe they're developing stuff.
And are they super intelligent?
Well, all it takes, I mean, if you think that, all you need is a knowledge of gunpowder, and to people who don't know gunpowder, you will seem like an absolute genius. So we go to tribes in Africa, and they're like, oh my God, you can make stuff happen. So maybe all they need is one or two kind of leaps of scientific knowledge, and therefore they've worked out how to, whiz through space-time in a way that we can't, and therefore they seem like gods or aliens. But if I was to put money on it, 95% out of 100, I would say we're being visited by aliens.
Okay. And by aliens, you mean?
Non-Earth life forms.
Non-Earth life forms.
But I'm not sure. And it could be earthbound.
And might they be the stereotypical greys that we talk about, or green men? I've often wondered why green is associated with aliens.
Yeah, I don't know. This comes from So people who claim there's a famous case of the Betty and Barney Hill case in 19. Gosh, was it 69? Was it around that time?
Okay.
And this was an interracial couple in America.
Right.
Who, long story short, they had missed. They saw a UFO. They had an hour or so of missing time.
Oh yeah.
And
that's a sign that you've been abducted.
Exactly. Yeah. So the 2-hour journey took 3 or 4 hours to get home, and they had rips on their clothes and whatever after seeing this UFO.
Probe up the old. That's usually. Well, they did aliens
probe up the backside, yeah. Don't know why they'd want to do that. They just want to take stool samples from us. And they underwent regression hypnosis, and on regression hypnosis, they claimed that there were these beings, and so I think that view of greys came from their drawing, and so I'm not necessarily believing in that, but I do believe that there are craft in the sky that when you have the head of the Belgian Air Force, saying. Categorically that in 1989, over the course of a year or so, our F-15s or whatever chased triangular craft that were whizzing around and we couldn't chase them. Mm-hmm. When you have military, pilots saying we are seeing stuff in the sky,
an unidentified UFO up there.
You've got to say there's something to this.
Can't be dismissed. Mohammed Akbar is asking, do you think ancient societies may have known about them, which is why they come up with some stories of different beings coming to Earth, about aliens, that is. And he said, someone told me aliens gave revelations to prophets of God.
I have to say pass. I don't know. See, this is how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole? If you believe that aliens exist and they're visiting us, then you might say, well, were the prophets of God aliens? Did they build the pyramids? Did they, are they collaborating with people under the...
The trouble is language. Like, we associate aliens with all the films that we've been indoctrinated with. Yeah. He associates the word jinn with whatever his understanding of the word from the Quran is. But from what I understand, jinn just means an unseen being.
Yes.
If you can't see aliens, they could be jinn. These could be the names that are attributed to them. David Icke, the great scholar, you're not a great fan of, but he talks a lot of sense, in my opinion.
Yeah, some of the things he says are spot on.
The Archons and the Nephilim and all these different names that have been mentioned throughout history. Something all the ancient civilizations agree upon is that there are entities that we don't understand, whether that's from up there, in there, or a different realm on the same plane. I don't know.
And all I would be adding to this discussion is just pure speculation. I mean, yes. I mean, maybe we're thinking the wrong thing when we say, they have to be like us but from another planet visiting here. They could be interdimensional if they exist at all. Yeah. They could be interdimensional. We just don't know. Who people who we consider angels, things that we consider angels, as you say. Who knows? There's more to heaven and earth. Horatio than meets the... What was that from Shakespeare or whatever? But yeah, absolutely.
To be or not to be.
To be or not to be.
Let down your hair, or whatever it is.
Yes. No, it's a fascinating topic, but I believe there's something going on. There's just far too much evidence that there is something.
And is it something sinister? Is it something good? Is it neutral?
Okay, my view, and different people, different ufologists, people who are into UFOs will have all sorts of different views, ranging from the sensible to the totally wacky. My view is that all you can do is go by the facts. It's quite boring, unfortunately, in my view. Just go by the facts. The facts are, as far as I'm concerned, there are craft out there that aren't made by humans. That's it. And, they would probably, the probable truth is that they're quite boring. They're like us, but billion years advanced, and they're coming and they're just looking and they're worried about our environment. I think they're benevolent. I don't think, my guess would be they're not malevolent at all. They are probably more interested in us as a species killing each other. Interestingly, many sightings happen around nuclear sites.
Right.
And through history, that's a common theme. So they're clearly pubs. Yeah, exactly, pubs. And drug orgies and so on. So they're probably interested very much in us as, in the same way that we'd be interested in bees, and we want them to be happy and flourish.
Yeah. If they are here and they've they've made their way here rather than us meeting them. Presumably they are more advanced than us. And I would hope they're more advanced morally and not just technologically, because we've come a long way technologically and sometimes morally we've gone backwards. And that would be my only
You're
worry.
absolutely right, Jill. And in fact, as you know, in my faith, the prophet of my faith says that actually technological advancement comes with spiritual advancement, so that the two go hand in hand. And from the point of view of my faith and what I believe, these beings, if they are 1 billion or 10 billion, or not 10 billion, 2 billion or 1 million years advanced compared to us, they will undoubtedly be spiritually advanced as well. Undoubtedly. It goes without. So there's
are we morally advanced compared to people 2,000 years ago?
I believe undoubtedly we are. Yeah.
I was arguing your point the other day in a conversation about with a Muslim, but I was arguing that gradually over the years we get better morally, and a couple of guys disagreed and said, are you sure? Look at abortion on demand, that's immoral, which is a good point, and he made several good points, but I think on the whole, on average, we are getting better, and sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I would like to think we're getting better, but it's easy to say, look at the world nowadays, these days, it's all gloom and doom.
You're right, George. There are always, with technology and with expanding visions of, what the world is, the world becoming a smaller place, us being able to travel to other places, the population increase and climate change and all of these things, there are new challenges. And with new challenges come new opportunities, like with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and all of these things, there come new moral challenges. So there won't have been the challenges of, say, 200,000 years ago, as we were fighting Neanderthals or whatever. There won't have been the challenges of, the rich getting away paying no tax because they didn't have taxation. So there are new challenges as you move forwards. But and the other thing is a very kind of a wise scientific way of thinking is that you don't just look at the bad and say that therefore we've gone backwards. The important thing. So as a doctor, when I was a junior doctor, running around on the wards at a hospital at night. If a nurse, a nurse would call me and say, so-and-so patient's blood pressure is, 80/50. And, I would be in a flap, oh my God, that's really dangerous, and run to the ward and try and infuse them with fluids. As I got more and more advanced and I was more a senior doctor, my first question wouldn't be, oh my God, let me run down now. My question would be, what was it like an hour ago? If an hour ago the blood pressure was 70/30, then 80/40 is an improvement.
The direction of travel.
It's the trend that's important, the direction of travel. So yes, there's bad in the world now, but the direction of travel now is that we are talking about issues of racial equality, of the equality of the genders, of world unity, all of these things. On this very bit of land here in Reading, in the 800s, I believe, the Londoners, the Danes in London, were fighting the Anglo-Saxons here in Reading. Now we're united. We're one country. There was human sacrifice going on pre-Christian times. There's human sacrifice. And now
is abortion on demand the new child sacrifice, and we don't realise that. Obviously, it's not as obviously bad, but to people that believe in the sanctity of life, that is murder. I'm not saying that's my position, but religious people will have that viewpoint.
I'll be honest. I think I'm going to pass on that. Because genuinely I don't know. It's a very.
Sorry, it's a bad one to bring up.
No, it's
but
good. It's
even
a good topic.
Maybe like the way veganism is going, we might look at consuming meat as being as barbaric as some of the practices that we had before.
Possibly, probably, yes, absolutely. So there are moral, absolutely. So,
and we can't judge history by our own set of morals.
No,
it's always
we absolutely
it's changing. And one of the points that was brought up in the conversation was with Paul Williams, his name is. He's saying, look, morals always change, but God provides morals that are consistent. Well, that seemed to be what he was arguing. But I think even religions have changed their morals over periods of time.
Well, as you know, Jules, in my faith, and I don't want to kind of to go on about it. It was my faith, the Baha'i faith.
Monologue lecture.
Yeah. So we believe in the idea of progressive revelation, that there are certain truths that are eternal, and so love thy neighbour, these sorts of things, communion with God, and all of these things, prayer, fasting. These are golden threads that run through all what we call chapters of religion. We don't call them different.
Are they? Did love thy neighbour mean if he's from Reading?
Well, exactly. So the essence of love is there, but then how that's implemented in society changes, and the needs of society change. So now we're asked to have a loyalty to the world, not just to our nation. Whereas you go back to the Jewish faith and the Jewish prophets, they would talk about loyalty to just the Israelites.
But I'm sure there are Jewish people that now apply it to everybody.
Absolutely.
Christians.
Of course they do. Absolutely. So their understanding of that law, they've been able to take that and evolve it to make it relevant to today. And that's what happens with religion. That I think we're taught that these laws are relevant to the day and to the needs and the capacity of humanity at the time. So yes, I mean. Yes, these laws do change and become more relevant. And you're absolutely right. I'm certain that the next messenger of God, or 10 messengers of God down the line, maybe in 10,000 years' time, will say, maybe even God doesn't exist. I don't know. I mean, it's the stuff that we won't even be able to comprehend right now.
And from your understanding, that process will happen forever.
Yes.
And ever.
Yes. That's what we believe.
Starting to know what that feels like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Most people or most religions are expecting the end of the world or the end of times, and it's all going to come to a conclusion. Then what?
Yes.
I don't know. Sam, I want you to go and mingle with your guests because they deserve to have a chat with you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for the chat.
Thank you. Send anyone else in.
Who would you like me to send in?
Someone.
I shall mingle around
one of the better ones.
See if it's one of the better ones.
A lot of the best people haven't shown up.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Thank you for coming.
Well done. Yeah, send
See
anyone
you guys. Thanks for watching.
Tanya ideally, but anyone.
Tanya ideally. I shall grab that.
And I'm going to catch up with the comments in here. Jordan M has said, has anyone given you grief over your free Palestine t-shirt? No, not today, and not recently, but I'm sure there would be some people that wouldn't like it. But hey, freedom of speech. Remember that Bar said, do you guys believe in a creator of the universe, i.e. God? Sam does, and I am agnostic. Colin Alloy said, does Modine play up for the camera in your opinion, Julian? Don't we all? How am I looking? Am I looking good? PSV Eindhoven is saying, sometimes people can see the jinn. People who don't know about jinn will think they are aliens, and this is what happened. Danny Braunstein had a question for Sam. Do you consider yourself a ufologist? I'll ask him. Another question, Jordan, it's just that that's about something else. No problem. People talking between themselves. Is anyone up for it, Sam? Yeah, bring it on. Yeah, I'm rolling. We're still rolling. Thank you, Jordan M, for staying tuned. Yeah, stay tuned to Lessons for Life. Yeah, bring him in. I'm just getting the next guest lined up. Stay tuned. Modine is over on ITV, but keep it here. Lessons for Life. We're talking about the moon. Well, we started out with the moon landing. I am a conspiracy nut, but I want to believe that the moon landing happened, just to make it simple. As Jordan M said, there's too many different accounts of why it couldn't be true. But then I look at the footage. I listened to a talk from an old conspiracy theorist called William Cooper, who was killed in a shootout by the American police outside his house not long after 9/11, and I believe he had put out information prior to 9/11 saying that very soon there would be some kind of false flag operation. And then he died in a shootout with the American authorities, which does make you wonder. But long before that, he had spoken at great length about the moon landings, and in particular the footage, and his breakdown of what you should expect to see at 1/6 gravity versus what we see in the footage of the so-called moon landings is what convinced me that the footage is fake. But as I said, the footage being fake doesn't mean that it didn't really happen. Who's coming in, Sam? Are they all? Are they camera shy? No problem. Well, if you want to jump back in, you're welcome. Or I'll continue monologue lecture. There were questions that came for you in your absence.
Oh right. Well, maybe I should come back then. Yes.
Danny Braunstein did ask you, do you consider yourself a ufologist?
Oh.
Okay, well,
No, I'm not a ufologist, no.
He then corrected himself and said, sorry, I mean urologist.
Oh, urologist.
But ufology versus urology.
Are you taking the piss? Get it? Urologist taking the piss?
Oh, yeah. You're in trouble now.
Oh, very good, yes. I'm trying to think of another one.
Don't take it unless you've got one ready.
Yeah. No, I don't consider myself a urologist, but I do frequently urinate.
There you go. Heard it here first. Right, I'm going to broach it, and you can refuse to answer if you want. What happened at Rendlesham Forest? I knew he'd bring it up.
So this is an in-running joke, is that, if there's one topic that I'll talk forever about is Rendlesham Forest.
Get started.
This is an interesting case, actually. So,
go on.
In a nutshell, in 1980? I can't remember. I think it was 80 or 80 in the early 80s. An American army base. I think it was either Woodbridge or Bentwaters was the base, but both of these are two bases that overlook a forest called
Rendlesham Forest.
Rendlesham Forest in southeast England.
How are we spelling Rendlesham for someone wants?
R-E-N, R for Romeo, E-N-D-L-E-S-H-A-M, Rendlesham.
And not
Forest.
Windlesham.
Not Windlesham, no. In a nutshell, over the course of 3 nights, I believe, multiple military personnel, so these aren't just people walking a dog, who've got cataracts, military personnel who are trained, the defence of the UK and NATO and America rests on the ability of these people to identify things and to spot threat. Were convinced, and to this day are convinced, they saw a UFO. They saw a craft coming in, landing in the forest. One of them.
Are they convinced it's a spacecraft from aliens?
They don't know.
Because UFO, as you know, just means unidentified flying.
Absolutely, they don't know. So you have to just go by the facts. The facts are that these guys are saying that this thing came in, it zigzagged around the sky in weird, impossible ways. It fired a beam down at a nuclear facility there. Okay. Remember, this was the Cold War.
Could be the Russians?
They were afraid it might be the Russians, but they're testifying there's no way the Russians then, or even we now, have the technology
that we know
of. This thing, a triangular craft, landed in the middle of Rendlesham Forest. These guys went out. There's audio recording. There's a guy, Colonel Holt, who was the colonel, the head of the base on Christmas Day. Actually, he went out, and you can hear it. You can see it on.
And it was his birthday.
Yeah, you can hear it on YouTube. His voice going, "Oh my God, this is weird. This is weird. There's a thing. It's in the woods." And there's another guy, Peniston, who actually went up to it, touched it, spent something like 45 minutes around it, drawing, and there's some weird hieroglyphs.
And there's footage of this?
There's not footage. They took a photograph, but the photograph came back just overexposed. And this thing shot up at impossible speeds.
And how many eyewitness accounts for this?
Apparently there's something like, we're talking more than, the bunch of people who went out on one of these nights was something like 5 or 6 people, I believe. There was Penniston, Holt, Kapansak, Burrows, and all these people have all drawn. And if you go to the Ministry of Defence website, you can download either through their website or another site through the Freedom of Information Act written statements from these personnel, drawings saying what they saw. And oddly enough, it wasn't that got me interested. So I thought, okay, these guys have seen something. What got me really interested in the case when I was a teenager, I think it was the skeptic's explanation.
Weather balloon.
Even more ridiculous than a weather balloon. Their explanation was that a lighthouse, I think 5 miles away. Now, bear in mind, these guys are living on these bases. They know the lighthouse is there. Yeah. They've seen that lighthouse. They're staring at it, day in, day out. That these military personnel mistook a lighthouse 5 miles away for this thing that came in. They then kind of shoehorn lots of different explanations in. Oh, there was a meteor hundreds of miles away burning up in the atmosphere. That's the light that they saw coming in. Then they saw the lighthouse in the woods. Oh, this is another part of it. They went back the next morning and they saw the exact place that I think it's Sergeant Penniston said that this triangular craft landed. There were three identical indentations, round indentations in the ground, forming a perfect isosceles triangle. There were 3 perfect circles, exactly where he said this thing landed. And the skeptic's explanation is, those were done by rabbits. Rabbits just happened to
crop circles.
Yeah. I mean, the skeptic's explanation is so ridiculously stupid. I'd be much happier if they had to say, you know what, this was a weather balloon or this was an experimental craft.
Well, but what's wrong with we don't know? People seem very reluctant to say that.
But see,
to be very sure of your explanation.
And this is what you were saying earlier, Jules. This is what we said about half an hour ago. That the trouble with people who aren't honest and scientific in their thinking is that they are 100% sure. People are 100% sure this was aliens. I'm not 100% sure this was aliens. I think it's likely, but I'm not 100% sure. People are 100% sure no, aliens can't exist for religious reasons or personal reasons or whatever. No, it can't happen. Therefore, this was a lighthouse and it was rabbits. And this just incenses me because and if you argue with these people, they'll display something called the backfire effect, which is they will get more and more entrenched in their position.
Dig the heels in.
Basically, Jules, I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. But something really interesting happened.
I wonder why that's not as famous. Well, maybe it is, and I'm just ill-informed. But why is it not as famous as the Roswell incident? Which is why I said weather balloon, because famously they dismissed that as a weather balloon. Roswell is the one everyone knows about.
Yeah. So the reason it's not as famous as Roswell is several-fold. Number one, this is called Britain's Roswell. Okay. So number one, this has happened on a remote island. As important as we think we are in the UK, we are not America.
A remote island where exactly?
Well, England, Britain I'm talking about.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you meant it was in the Orkneys or something.
No. Okay. No, so this happened in Britain. So we've got a smaller population, less dramatic people. Number one. But Roswell happened in America. Number two, Roswell, I think, was the first big kind of story of its time, of UFOs. So that's the first. Number three, what happened with Roswell is that the military said, we have shot down an alien craft.
The official line in Roswell was
Yeah, they came out and said it. The newspapers published, we have shot down a flying saucer. So they've said it. It was.
That was the official line, and then it was later hushed up.
Within hours or the next day, they come up with another thing, and there's someone holding a bit of a weather balloon. Oh no! It was just a weather balloon. And so that's what got people thinking, hang on, whoa. What are you talking about? Yeah. So researchers have gone in, they've talked to the people, the ranch owner it was his land that the UFO thing landed on, saying, yes, we've got this stuff, it had weird hieroglyphs on, it was this weird metal that kind of sprung into shape and all of this stuff. Some people said we saw dead bodies, but they were their eyes were slightly oddly placed.
There's a video of a apparent autopsy.
Yeah.
Now that must be fake.
Yeah, I think it's fake. I mean,
was it faked back then? When did that footage emerge?
I don't know. I think that was the 80s or 90s it emerged. I don't know. It's a black and white footage called Alien Autopsy. As someone who has cut through cadavers as part of my training as a doctor, to me it looks fake. The trouble with ufology, Jules...
I mean, a real alien would look different.
Yeah. The trouble with ufology, Jules, and anyone listening, is that, and I've said this to you often, we've talked about this a lot offline, is that the best way to hide a truth is by smothering it in lies. That's the best way. So
disinformation.
Exactly. So if I was to say, Jules, Dave's at the door, and he is actually at the door, and I could come in and say, Dave's at the door. Now everyone else who's trying to hide it could come and say, no, Sam's lying. Or everyone else could come in saying, yeah, you know what, Michael Jackson was at the door. Yeah, you know what, Buzz Aldrin was at the door. Yeah, and just come up with so much crap, excuse my language, that you just don't know what to believe anymore. It's the same with this. So who knows? Yeah, there's hoaxes, and that's disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
There's hoaxes, there's disinformation, there's misinformation. Who knows what's true anymore?
Yeah. I think that's definitely the case with the flat Earth. Whether that's deliberate or not, I think it will be used to dismiss people that question the official line and think, oh, what, are you a flat earther? It's just synonymous with being, a tinfoil hat wearer.
And if you want me to really sound like a tinfoil hat wearer, I would suggest that probably exactly that many stupid conspiracies are started and are taken up by what the Russians call useful idiots. Are taken up by useful idiots who will just believe any conspiracy going. Knowing full well, yeah, exactly.
Even the ones that contradict each other.
Exactly that. So knowing full well that if they just spread this disinformation out, there are 20-foot humans they found in China. The moon is hollow. The moon landings didn't happen. The Earth is flat. All these things. You'll put so much stupidity out there that anyone like me, who says in a calm, scientific, grounded way, there are craft out there that are beyond human. I suddenly sound like a nutter.
Yeah, exactly. Muhammad Akbar has said they push out disinfo to confuse us and make us true free thinkers look silly. Yeah, I would agree. So I don't know who they are. A question came in earlier saying, do you guys believe in secret societies controlling the world and occultism/magic?
Okay, so I'll answer. So I don't believe in secret society.
I do, and that's that.
Well, okay, but we probably
go on.
Let's debate it. So okay, it depends. And I don't want to use the "if by whiskey" argument here, but I will.
What's if by whiskey?
I think it's a form of argument. I think I read it not long ago. It's a form of argument
like
where you say.
I
think politicians do this a lot. You say, do you think this? And I say, well, if by this you mean so and so, then yes.
Okay.
But I think I have to here. We've got to explain what we mean. If you say, the Bilderberg Group or Spectre or whatever, or there's a group of people sitting in a room, evil people going, let's hide UFOs. Yeah, I think that's probably not happening. But if you're saying, is there a loosely organised group of people of corporations, let's say, who have happened to share the same interests? And like that status quo to kind of keep that going. I would say that's probably likely. For example, the arms industry, the banks, the oil industry, the kind of people that David Icke talks about. I don't knock him completely. I suspect something like that is probably, for example, is there an evil room somewhere where the Saudis are talking to the Americans, probably not, but their interests match the American interests match. So there are various interests that kind of match, and so in a sense, yes, there is probably a group, or groups, yeah. So there is a force beyond governments that is probably not good. to put it very simply. What do you think to that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think there are probably various groups that pull in different directions at certain times but have a common goal at others, and different groups will be very influential. I don't know how influential the Freemasons are, but that's the one that always comes up. There are many other secret societies.
Yes. In terms of black magic and occult, I'm sure there are wackos everywhere. I'm sure as we speak there are groups all over the world that are trying to do black magic and occult and whatever. I don't believe that stuff exists, but I'm sure there are. So would some of these people do stuff like that? Did David Cameron do whatever with a pig? Possibly,
Because,
probably, I don't care, to be honest, but yeah.
Like Bohemian Grove, where everyone...
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Grove, and is it the Bilderbergers that gather at Bohemian Grove? That one is out there. There's a meeting every year, and people like Alex Jones have broadcast from there. But I think if that's it's out there. Well, I think Alex Jones is, when it comes to reporting on conspiracy theories, he's mainstream light.
Okay.
He's no longer asking the questions that he used to ask about 9/11, about various other groups and banking system, etc. He seems to have, although he's still got deplatformed, brought himself much further towards the mainstream narrative. And there are Bilderberg meetings, people do meet there, and anyone could go and report from outside it. We don't know what goes on inside there, but I sense if there are really influential groups controlling the world, we won't even know who they are.
Well, look, I mean, my question is, does there even have to be? So, is this one of those conspiracy things that have just been built up to kind of, like these other bits of disinformation? Does there really actually have to be a group somewhere, in some coven somewhere, sacrificing young virgins and doing black magic for it to be true that there are groups controlling the world? Clearly, even if you put all that aside, is it or is it not the case that there are groups, and I don't want to get political, but there are groups beyond the likes of Donald Trump and Boris Johnson and all these people? There are interests in the world that are beyond governmental interests, that are pulling strings and are creating wars and invasions and all of these things. Undoubtedly there are. So whether you call them the Bilderberg Group or Spectre or people, whether they're wearing black cloaks and doing magic, that's almost a distraction. That's almost disinformation as far as I'm concerned. Because either you say, right, they're doing magic, and then say, well, that's stupid. Let's rubbish all of that. Or say, no, forget that. But there are people controlling the world. We know there are. We know that no matter who is the president of the USA, there's always an agenda to drop bombs on brown people. I'm sorry to say that. But that is the reality. And we just don't learn. We invade Iraq, we don't learn. We're now talking about invading Iran. We don't learn.
On that note, I think Trump will hold back until he's in his second term to do what you just mentioned. Because if he does it now, I think it will cost him a second term, and people that did vote for him may have hoped that he would be different and move away from this agenda of bombing the Middle East. He said he would. He reneged on that, and it might cost him a second term. But I don't know. Is it good that he stops and then does it in the second term? Is it better that the football manager gets sacked now, as you say?
Yeah.
I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm not a Hillary fan either. Mohammed Akbar said, Alex Jones supports mainstream narrative governments. I think he's a shill. I learned a new word today from an environmental activist called Noah, which is a astroturfer.
Do I know her?
Yeah, you might do. No, his name's Noah, and he's trying to save the world from climate change. And an astroturfer...
He wants to build loads of plastic grass.
But it's to do with posing as a grassroots level movement, but actually they are corrupt from the start. And I was saying, did he think that Extinction Rebellion had been infiltrated by people with an ulterior motive? And he said, no, they were bad to begin with.
Right.
They are astroturfers. Okay. They're posing as grassroots movements, but really they're paid off by big oil like there seems to be a real lack of unity amongst the people that are trying to unite to do something, and I'm sceptical of everything, including the Extinction Rebellion and the way that it was just facilitated by the police, and London was brought to a standstill for a period of a week. And had that been for Julian Assange, who is in prison for speaking the truth about, for example, the Iraq War, which may have happened because of big oil, partly. If there was a protest that brought London to a standstill for him and WikiLeaks, it would have been beaten off the streets by police with horses and batons. But that's my take on it.
Interesting.
Muhammad Akbar is saying, do you guys believe people like Jesus, Moses, Muhammad and all of them, etc., existed in history? Yeah, I don't think that's too much of a controversial point to...
Well, I certainly do, absolutely, yeah.
Sam certainly does. The further back you go, like Moses, I have no idea. But 2 billion, 3 billion believers or whatever acknowledge that these people existed. I don't care so much about the people, whether they existed or not, but the people that believe in them and what they believe about that person is what interests me, because that will dictate your behaviour. If you believe that Moses came with a message saying, do not murder, then great.
Yes.
But if you believe that he came with a message that said annihilate the Canaanites or whatever it was, then
there's a beautiful passage.
There's
a beautiful passage in a bit in the Bible. I can't remember the quote. Sorry, the chapter and verse where I think Paul is travelling Paul is travelling to Saul, and Jesus, who's been crucified at this stage, appears to him and says, "Why are you persecuting me?" And what Saul is doing is he's killing Christians, he's killing believers. He's not persecuting Jesus. He's killing Christians. But Jesus says, "Why are you persecuting me?" So Jesus equates his followers with his body, with him. So where I'm going with that is that, in a sense, almost I don't kind of care if there was a guy called Yeshua ben Yosef, who we know as Jesus, or there was a guy, Muhammad. Of course, I believe there was, but in a sense it doesn't matter, because what matters is the belief that the fruits, as Jesus put it, you shall know them by their fruits. The fruits that has developed, and the fruit is the beautiful religion of Islam. It's a beautiful, beautiful religion that has brought about science and everything we have now. The ability to do this is because of Islam. Now, whether or not Muhammad existed as a person, it doesn't matter. The fact is, what's flourished is Islam. So whether it was a lie or whether it was a person, actually the end result is the same. Same with Christianity, same with Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all of these religions. It almost doesn't matter if the actual person existed or not. So what? But of course, I believe they did.
P.S.
But they did.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think people need to get the meaning rather than the literal account of what happened. Did the Good Samaritan actually exist?
Exactly. Very, very good.
Probably not.
Did he have to have existed for that story to mean something? And I think Jules, and Muhammad Akbar, I think this is where people miss the point. Not you, Muhammad, but just generally, get hung up on, actually, did Jesus, even die on the cross or not, or did Muhammad do this, that, or the other, or whatever. Actually, it doesn't matter. To get caught up on these historical facts doesn't change the fact that their message was a message of love. Their message changed whole continents. As Jesus said, you shall know them by their fruits. And Muhammad was undoubtedly who he said he was because of the effect he's had on the world. Forget the last few years with ISIS and all that. That's not Islam. Same with Christianity and every religion.
This was a point I was trying to make to the Hebrew Israelites, who were desperate to tell me that no, Jesus was a black man, and the Jesus you believe in is wrong. I know. So what? But I can understand why black people who have been
Yeah.
robbed of their history,
Yeah, sure.
their culture, their religion, and told Jesus was a blue-eyed white man.
Yeah, no, fair.
On previous evenings, you've shown the digitally recreated picture of what Jesus
Likely to look like,
likely to have looked like. Wouldn't say he was black, but definitely not white either.
Yeah. No, but I think that's a really good counteraction. What's the word? I'm so tired. Is it counteraction? Counteract to the whole
argument-winning thingy.
Argument-winning thingy to the whole narrative that Jesus was tall, blonde, blue-eyed.
Legal term. Yeah, it's about.
So I fully support that. Yeah.
Mohammed Akbar is saying, I hope you bring this doctor on your streams in the future. This deserves more viewers. And it's very interesting.
God bless you. Thank you, Mohammed.
Nice one.
All praise to people watching and commenting. And
thank
you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm glad no one else wanted to chat to me.
Yeah, thank you. I did try, honestly. I did try.
No, it's all good. All right, well, at 1 hour, 9 minutes and 49 seconds, maybe we'll wrap it up and we'll go and chat with people off camera. I will do it again. This happens every Thursday night. If anyone would like to attend one of these meetings, email me, lessonsforlife247@gmail.com, and we'll screen you. And if you don't seem like a complete nutter, I might invite you down. But it's a very good, I call it an interfaith meeting, but it's a discussion meeting.
It is.
Whatever you want to make
absolutely.
of it, right?
Yeah.
All right, one more message. Thank you very much, gentlemen. All the best. Same to you. Thank you. All right, we'll do it all again soon. Same time, same place.
Thank you.
Good night.